Welcome everybody to another episode of Satisfactory. And just like I promised, I built a nice simple setup to take your uranium waste and turn it into power. So, if you like what you see, or this helps you, don't forget to subscribe. I could care less about likes and comments. Nah, I'm just kidding. Do whatever you want, you guys are the best. Anyway, let us begin. As you can see right here, this is a jumble mess, because unlike the uranium, this is very complicated. You'll be using stuff like the particle accelerator, blenders, refineries, all the good stuff. Now, there are alternate ways to make this. I chose the most simple setup, not because it's the one that has the least amount of items, but because it has the easiest amount of items. Now, there is an alternate one in the assembler, for some that don't know, which actually produces even more plutonium fuel rods per minute. Unfortunately, it takes stuff like the pressure conversion cube. And the problem with this is, if we find the pressure conversion cube, we see it takes a fused modular frame and a radio control unit. And the huge problem with this is that basically just goes the line of every modular frame, which is going to take up so much space and so many items. So that is why I chose this method, because it is the easiest and most simple method to go. So as you figure this out, you're going to look for your uranium waste per minute that you are producing. That is going to be the number that you're going to start with. Now, if you don't know, these lovely uranium power plants actually make a... Wait a minute. Wait. That is awesome. I love that. That is so cool. As you know, these things actually produce 10 uranium waste per minute per reactor. So with these two right over here, that's going to be producing us 20 uranium waste per minute. Now, why do I have two of these? Well, that's because in the last video I showed you that the uranium fuel rod that you're making can handle 2 per minute. So we want to go off of there. Now, as you can see, the waste is actually going into this lovely blender over here. This is actually where we had to start to figure out where it is, because the recipe actually has it at 25 uranium waste per minute, and I had to lower that down. But instead of starting there and showing you where to go, I'm going to show you how it ends up and show you from the end all the way down to the beginning. So once you figure that blender out, you can actually figure out the particle accelerator, then you can figure out the manufacturer, and then work your way from the manufacturer going backwards, and you'll just be fine. So in the manufacturer, I had to turn this to 142.26667%, making us a 0.356 plutonium fuel rods per minute. And those take 4 things: encased plutonium cells, steel beams, electromagnetic control rods, and heat sinks. So with everything that's over here, we can actually divide this up into half. So half of it over here as well as half of it over there. So the first half, the harder half, is going to actually have this particle accelerator. Now in the particle accelerator, we're making encased plutonium cells. There's an alternate recipe that takes the non-fissioned uranium and goes and skips a step. Otherwise, you would actually have to go to this plutonium pellet one, which takes even more uranium waste. Now, if you want to waste uranium waste and get rid of it as fast as possible, this is a really good recipe. But because we want the simplistic one, we're going right into instant plutonium cells. And I have that at 106.66667%. Yeah, we had to up this thing, which means it's going to take more power. And as you can see, our power ranges from almost 300 to almost 900. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. Next thing in the system, as I showed you before, was the 80%, making the non-fissioned uranium, as well as the water. And the water's basically going to be put back into the system like we always do. And of course, we need uranium and uranium waste. Noni, I hear you say, uranium? Why are we going to put more uranium back in the system? By choosing this alternate fertile uranium one, we actually bypass this one that actually needs silica. So if we don't need silica in the system, we don't need quartz. And we're already bringing uranium in the system from the previous one. Might as well bring in a little extra. And as you can see, we only need about 20 per minute. So between the 20 here and the 40 for the other one, that's a 160 belt of uranium. That's it. To run all of this. Well, maybe a little more power to run all this, but that's beside the point. Anyway, it needs nitric acid and sulfuric acid. The uranium and the uranium waste you'll be able to bring in no problem. And of course, the nitric acid is actually made in a blender using nitrogen gas, which you're going to find in the world, water you're going to find in the world, and iron plates. And let's face it, you can make iron plates easy. Even when this thing's at 100%, that's still not a lot of iron plates. As for a nice refinery of sulfuric acid, it's just sulfur and water. And because we have the water coming in through here, it's actually going to go back into here as well as here for both of these, so it'll actually be really useful. As you can see, I have these both next to each other, and I just kind of have them coming over and going in. Nothing too special. Also, for the nitric acid, the iron plates I was telling you about, I just have a nice little constructor over here making iron plates, and then that goes over here to make a nice little iron ingots, you know, with some iron ore coming in. Nothing too difficult, it's just a nice little setup as it goes around. It's just a little jam-packed in here because I was trying to save space, so it kind of looks like it more than it is. With that being done, you'll actually know that the other thing that this needs besides the non-fissile uranium is aluminum casing, which is actually pretty cool because down here in the heat sinks, we need aluminum casing and rubber. Now, this set's at 35.6%, which is actually not that bad. This is the second thing that's needed in the manufacture. Now, the way that I have this set up is I have the rubber coming out over here, getting split up, and the extra is going into a bin over here. Because unfortunately, one of the things that I have set for the rubber is I need heavy oil residue for the petroleum coke. So I figured I'd use this and send the rest of it off to the side. Which is actually pretty alright, because you can use a resource sink over here instead of this storage container, and you can get rid of it. I just have this set to an overflow so that it gets rid of it and, you know, puts it off to the side. As for the aluminum casing, I have a nice little constructor just making the aluminum casing, and as you can see, I don't need much. And we come over here to the lovely pure aluminum ingot recipe, and I needed to up this one to actually make all my aluminum casing. Now we're going to need to get into the bauxite mine. As you can see, I have it coming over here, going up and going in, because I like mine to be as complicated as possible. But all I do is have one machine over here, not making very much of it, and that's where the petroleum coke comes in. So the petroleum coke and the aluminum solution is going to make my aluminum scrap. And it's also going to give me water that's going to come out of the system and go back into the system like the other ones. At the entrance of it, with the aluminum solution, I went for the wet and sloppy alumina, which is just bauxite and water, which makes it really easy. And as you can see, I only have this at 16% because I don't need quite that much. And that way, when the water comes in, I actually have a nice little valve on it, only letting about 20 in, which I don't even need that much. I gotta be careful because if too much water gets in, it'll back up this system. So this is kind of a fragile system that's got going on over here. I even have a nice lovely valve on this side as well, letting the water come in from this side into here. And of course, I haven't done the math just yet to figure out exactly how much I need, but that doesn't matter because these things never take what they actually need. So for right now, I'm just going to keep messing with this till I find a number that works. For some reason, with the bauxite and the aluminum solution and something like that, it tends to take less water and produce excess water. I don't know, it's really weird and finicky, so the numbers on the pipes never work out correctly. I think it's like an average, and that could mess up your system really bad. So just keep messing with it until you find one that actually works. I did it in my battery factory in a previous video, and I had to reduce it by so much just to actually get alumina being produced. Now, like I said, I had this one over here producing the rubber, and then as you can see, the rest of it actually came over here, and that's producing me some petroleum coke. And the petroleum coke is actually used for two things. One thing is going over there for the bauxite, the other thing is coming over here to a nice little foundry, which is part of the other half of the equation. So if we remember from the other half of the equation, we still need steel beams and electromagnetic control rods. So of course, I just have one thing making steel beams at 42.666%. And right over here, I have some electromagnetic control rods at 53.25%. And as you can see, these are very small numbers for this. This is a similar setup that we did for the uranium setup, where I just basically had two assemblers merging together into one assembler, making one part to go into a manufacturer. So it's actually not too bad. And what we got over here is we got the stator, which is the steel pipe and quick wire one, because it works out just so nicely at about 40%. And of course the AI limiter at about 42%, which is quick wire and copper sheet. And because they both need quick wire, I have the quick wire being made in an assembler, going in here and splitting off both ways. Then I have one assembler making the steel pipes, and one assembler making the copper sheet. And as you can see, it's actually set up pretty easy. We got the copper being made in a foundry this time, being split off for each one that it needs. We have a nice smelter making the caterium because we don't need that much. And then of course another foundry making the lovely steel ingots. And the great thing about having this foundry is that we have all this nice petroleum coke going in right there, which gives us a nice good number, because this can make up to 100 per minute if we raise it all the way back up. So this is a really good recipe. As you can see, that is it. It is not very simple as the other one, but boy, is it as simplified as it possibly can be. And as you can see, all you need for it is some lovely copper, caterium, iron. I actually have the iron split in 3 different ways, because I need it for the copper, I need it for the lovely steel, and of course I need it for the regular iron. Then we got some oil, we got some sulfur, some nitrogen gas, water, bauxite, uranium, and of course the uranium waste that is being made from the uranium power plants. Alright, now before we look at the end result of what we got, let's take one last look at how many items we need per minute. We need 20 uranium and 20 uranium waste per minute. We also need about 20 sulfur per minute and 48 nitrogen gas per minute. Back over here, we need about 32 bauxite per minute. Oh yeah, and some water. Who knows how much though? Then in terms of the oil, we need about 20 cubic meters of oil per minute. The iron is going to be about 6. Plus 26, so that's about like 32.378. And 12.225. Which gives us about 48, 49, so about maybe 50 pieces per minute. Not too bad. As for the copper, we only need about 24.51. For the caterium, 16.62. And because we're using petroleum coke for our lovely steel, we actually don't need anything else because we already have the oil coming in. So with those small, minuscule numbers, we are able to make what? Well, let's go check it out. What this produces is 0.356 plutonium fuel rods per minute. So what does that come out with? Well, so every 0.1 is one nuclear power plant. So I can have 1 to 3.5 extra nuclear power plants running per minute. So not only can I almost over double my power production over here, I have room to spare. And that's just with the waste. So to figure out the true power, I take this 0.356, and all I have to do is take the 2,500 megawatts that we're making, times it by 3.56, and you can see I'm making 8,900 megawatts of power. Add in the extra 5,000 that I'm making over here, and I have so much off of just 60 uranium. Just 60 uranium is making me over 10,000 megawatts of power easily. Actually, wouldn't that be over? That's a lot. Oh, that is crazy. So if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe, do a like on the video, and of course, leave a comment down there if you have any questions, if you just want to chat, hell, if you're new and just want to say hi. Also, let me know if you're actually going to build something like this for yourself. I know it seems really difficult, but at last, everything worth having really is. And of course, don't forget to take this one step at a time. Ooh, I'm just glad it's not crooked. Don't forget to take this one step at a time, because you got this. It's very hard and very difficult, but of course, it makes such an amazing amount of power. But I'm Drawing Chaos, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good day. Bye, buddy.